Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic / Non-Classic. This episode number 32, 33, Doubleshot number 31, 27. We have two Hellboy universe trades here. First up is B.P.R.D Omnibus Volume 4, written by Mike Mignola and John Arstry. The artwork is done by Guy Davis. The cover is Mike Mignola and Dave Stewart. The chapter break art is done by Mike Mignola, Dave Stewart, Kevin Nolan, and Dave Stewart. The stories in here are The Warning, The Black Goddess, and King of Fear. Okay, so the issues this thing collects, according to the show numbering for B.P.R.D. For The Warning, it's 46 to 50. For Black Goddess, it's 52 to 56, and King of Fear, 64 to 68. The Warning is basically about these, basically the B.P.R.D. had to watch these big, humongous robots attack a town that basically John used to live there. It's a really cool storyline, big action-packed one. I think it was Black Goddess, I think it was one where there's more stuff here with Abe Sapien here. Yeah. But also, at this point anyways, basically, by the way, here's the robots that have attacked in the town. Yep. Yeah. As the Black Goddess, it focuses on Liz Sheridan. Yes, it's all arc focus on her. Let's see. Black Goddess begins on page 151. Yeah, and you see him take a shower at the whole thing. Black Goddess begins like right afterwards, and there's John Abe Sapien. Basically, the storyline is them just not exactly battling monsters, but at this storyline they counter Lobster Johnson. Yep, the Golden Age superhero who was created by Mike Mignola for his universe. Yep, and he fights in World War II. One of a few. And you could say this story here is this one in the following way of planting seeds for the Lobster Johnson spin-off book. Yep, that's simple. There's stuff here with Liz, where apparently at this point she is at a temple. Now, it is revealed in another book that she was actually in a previous decade she was a teenager. I'll discuss that soon. But this storyline, it's like more like some Chinese stuff going here. And we do this unlike in the case of the previous story, which was a big epic story, even though yes, it was 5 parts to basically have these creatures attack a city. The very next story arc involves, get this, stuff basically happening across this book, which eventually leads into a session with the Joint Chiefs. Also, if you see Sledgehammer 44, which I think that's him. Yeah, a guy who also got his own mini-series. Yeah, Mike Mignola loves, basically, like Mike Mignola, he loves having every single aspect of his universe explored, like every single square inch. Yeah, and of course Liz using her fire powers here. Yeah, then Lobster shows up and leads to the King of Fear. Which, this is the storyline where they talk to Joint Chiefs, but they get turned down because even though they basically collaborate like a lot of stories here, then eventually they're basically going to be briefed by the United Nations, where, thanks to their report, they actually become a UN international agency. Yes, no longer American-based. Nope, it's now international. all funded by the UN. So yeah, very positive at the end of this. My guess is probably the reason why that in the book Mike Mignola decided to have it where B.P.R.D become international. He probably got inspiration from Marvel Comics Shield. That's probably the reason for it. And well, they were, as far as I can tell, they're still active in the universe. Just that there's not much being published for the Mike Mignola stuff. Not really. Mostly just a mini-series here and there. Hellboy himself does show up in a flashback in this book. Yeah, shows up in a flashback, which is a flashback to the opening story arc for Hellboy, Seeds of Doom. The very same story arc that was out there for the very first Hellboy movie and the reboot movie. Yep. Yeah, it gets wrapped up in a nice little bow with them basically, the UN basically making an international agency. And, well, of course, basically that's the next time I was like, "Hey, a favor, please move my bed away from Abe Sapien." Yep. But this book was really, really good. I do recommend checking it out because if you're a fan of Hellboy, check this book out. Next up, we have another omnibus. This time being basically a character who, I should point out though, aside from Hellboy himself, he's probably the most recognizable character from this universe of Hellboy. This being Abe Sapien. Yep, it's the first of 3 omnibuses collecting his whole brief series. Unlike in the case of B.P.R.D, which has about 170 issues, this book surprisingly has 46, even shorter than the main Hellboy book, and that was 57. And I haven't reviewed the whole series yet because there's one issue collected in a separate trade paperback, that B.P.R.D Human. This is The Drowning. Yes. The Drowning itself. This is Drowning in Our Stories. The stories in here are, by the way, we have the writing here, Mike Mignola, John Archett, and Scott Alley. Scott Alley, right now, very controversial person. Because they decided there was actually going to be a Hellboy miniseries we work on. Let's come on, 2020. Yes, believe it or not, there was going to be a Hellboy miniseries released that very year. Those of you thinking, why wasn't it released? I think it was a Hellboy book. I think it was. And it was 2020, not for sure. I think it was, no, it's not Hellboy. I thought it was Hellboy, my mistake. It's one of these books here. Nope, not that one. I don't think it was Abe Sapien. I know that for sure. Lobster? No. Sir Edward Grey? No. So there was a book called Frankenstein Done. It was canceled after only 2 issues because Scott Alley, the artist of this book, got accused of sexual harassment. Well, excuse me, not harassment, sexual assault. And as soon as basically this was found out, the man was fired on the spot. Yeah. So the book he was working on, Frankenstein Done, never finished. I would have had somebody else replace him. Yeah, I mean, the guy's a good writer, but what he did was wrong. Okay, so the artwork here is done by Jason Scott Sean Alexander, who later writes, I think he did one of Hellboy, not Hellboy, was one of Spawn spinoffs. I think it was Gunslinger Spawn, I think it was. No, actually, he did the art for the main book. Yes. He also had Peter Samajan, James Heron, Patricia Reynolds, Michael Avon-Oming, Juan Ferreira, Kevin Nolan, Alex Gosoff, Sayo Carosa, Guy Davis, Mike Nelson, Dave Stewart. Yeah, so this is basically that was originally printed for Ape Sapien in volumes 1, 2, and 9. So we also collected the B.P.R.D casualties. So, for the Ape Sapien stories. Now, there was this one-shot release in 1998. I've discussed that already in the basically the B.P.R.D Omnibus, so not worry about that. So, The Drowning. That is the first 5 issues of this book. Casualties is a short story from, I think it was like Dark Horse Comics Presents. Haunted Boy was issue 6. The Abyss Plane, which is in here, is also Land of the Dead, Witchcraft and Demonology. That Was Not Just, The Agapego, Subconscious, Lost Lives, Age of Sapien. So, The Abyss Plan, that's issues 7 and 8. Devil's Not Just, 9 and 10. A little fun fact about those issues. These were the only issues, prior to reading this trade paperback, this omnibus, I had never read these issues before. Never. I read everything else afterwards. That I did. So, in the case of Land of the Dead, this one in particular was published as Ape Sapien number 8, but the internal issue was actually issue 18. Yes. But what about Witchcraft Demonology? Let's see. It's for Black Store. Let's see. The Agapego. That was actually issue 33. Yeah, 33. Age of Sapien was a one shot. That was actually the one issue. Was issue 37 for the book. But it was published as on the cover 27. The interior was 37. Witchcraft Demonology was a standalone issue, where it basically was published on the cover, issue 30, but it was actually issue 40 of the book. Yes, issue 40. Lost Lives was published on the cover, being issue 15, but the internal issue was 25. Yes. So, Land of the Dead was a one-shot. Witchcraft Demonology, one-shot. Acapego, one-shot. Subconscious was a story from D's Comic Presents Volume 3 11. Lost Lives, one-shot. Age of Sapien, one-shot. The Drowning was a... The Drowning was a 5-issue miniseries. It basically kicked the thing off. That Was Not Just, basically, well, that was like Haunted Boy, The Abyss Plan, Devil Not Just, basically like the first 2 trades here. Yeah. So, in the case of The Drowning, this is basically kind of his first adventure, published in order, by the way. Yes. So, he basically kind of goes on his first assignment. This is kind of how he was first found. Yes. So, the first story is how he first found, and eventually when he gets recruited by the B.P.R.D, that's kind of basically the gist of it. He meets that was in the flashback, which apparently that was from... Yeah, and then basically, like, for a couple years, apparently it was found in 78, and basically, you could say the stories kind of basically took place between some stories in B.P.R.D. We had interacted with Liz Sheridan, which I think the way that it was written here, it seems like Liz and Abe either were close friends, or they basically had a thing for each other. Either one put working together in their first system on an assignment, which, by the way, the first story involves Hellboy. So this story here, just a story for Ape Sapien. He goes to his town, and Hellboy himself does show up here, but he knows he's not the main character here, so He pops up for one issue just to establish the fact, yes, is this canon of the main universe? Now, of course, this is set in 1981. Actually, 1978, excuse me. And of course, he has a dream where everything thinks he failed, but nope, not really. He requests help, but he ends up basically solving this issue on his own. He does a really good job of it, too. By the way, he becomes friends with Hellboy because he's hidden from being dissected by scientists. Yeah, with the drowning itself, really good opening story arc. Loved it. Excellent way to kick off basically the drowning's time in the book. And it's only 5 issues. And it's, you might be thinking, is this the only 5-parter about the entirety of the Abe Sapien series? If you're really curious about that, the answer is yes. Because I'm looking at basically, a lot of everything else either was 1, 2, maybe 3 issues. But the only thing I'm close to is maybe the Darkness is So Great. Of course, that was 5 issues as well. And that was the only one that was 5 issues. Yeah, apparently the story for these issues were actually rearranged for some reason. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a really good story arc. I loved it. So after the Saint Sebastian Robert the Priest storyline, made Phil Agent, 1981. He's an HR with Bob Glow with Liz Sheridan and Fierce Monsters. So this is set probably after some of the stories in the 90s. So we have Liz and Abe Sapien just going on a mission together for this really short story. And then we Haunted Boy. Doesn't say exactly any catch-up per se. The Haunted Boy, just a quick little 2-parter. Yeah, actually, no, it's just a standalone issue. It's 40 pages, this one. Yes, this one's co-written by John Aresi. Now, surprisingly, if you're curious, did Mike Mignola ever draw a single issue of Abe Sapien? I think he did the covers. I don't think he ever did the interiors. Nope, never did. Actually, the cover when the first book first started. But after the first 5 issues, he stopped doing it. So, Investigative Boy is this little haunted stuff here, a little sub-possession. Really fun little standalone story here. Then we have Land of the Dead. Yes, Land of the Dead. This is also a standalone issue. Yep, standalone issue. Now, is there any mentioning like before? Nope, it just goes straight into the main story. Well, my guess is it picks up right where the last story left off, presumably. Where it's like him just going to fight some creatures underground crypt. And then we have Wolfcrab Demonology. He is mentioned about the whole thing in here about Sir Edward Grey. There's a reference mentioning him in here. And the whole reason why that's set up is because he also got a spin-off too. As the Witchfinder. And then this story here is basically the very next thing. Yep, it's all about dealing with basically Witchfinder. It's like B.P.R.D set up Lobster Johnson, Abe Sapien set up Witchfinder. Yes, because Mike Mignola sets up all this stuff and these ongoing stuff, and have all these miniseries like The Rasputin, and all these characters. Because Mike Mignola loves having every single part of his universe mapped out as best he can. Yeah, this one's all about demons. Yes. And this issue feels like something you would see for a Witchfinder. I'll get back to that. Then we have the Abyss Plan. The Abyss Plan is the very next story that came after The Haunted Boy. It's a quick two-parter. Excuse me. Yep. Well, this is an underwater story because Abe's having some underwater, so I'd have a story that was underwater stuff. Which, yeah, a little underwater zombies, and we kind of deal with that here for this story. And then we have The Devil Does Not Jest. This storyline here is a three-parter. Yes. No, it doesn't end the book. We're like halfway through it so far. Creature on a boat finds like this giant creature in this pond bottom of the stairs. Hellboy himself shows up here because why not? I think this was the second time he appeared in the book. I haven't looked at the other ones yet, but yeah, the second time he appeared in the Abe same book because same universe, why not? And then the Agapago, which is a standalone, like I mentioned before, it's a standalone issue. Yes, the Agapago is the 33rd issue of the series. Yeah, I actually read some of these issues I read when they first came out. Agapago was one of them. Yeah. Yep. And this is this actually is a team-up story of Hellboy and Abe Sapien. I guess Mike Miller is like, hey, why not? They're friends. They have Subconscious. And this one in particular, this one here is actually set immediately after. This is for Subconscious, which actually this is a short story. This is after the events of Siege Destruction, which that's what caused the professor and the whole thing Rasputin. It's a quick short story of him traveling underwater. They have Lost Lives, where this basically even mentioning the events of like. So they mentioned something happened in the main book, and they mentioned the Plague of Frog stuff. Yeah, so this is after the Plague of Frogs, and this is one that you can kind of feel as though if you read the B.P.R.D book, this is in between. This is after the Plague of Frogs miniseries. This is kind of what Abe, of course, Abe Sapien was once accused of being part of the Frogs thing, but he has nothing to do with the Frogs. Yes, eventually he does find out he actually is a much older person than he was. Or apparently he was like someone fought in World War II. This is where the H.O. Sapien comes in. And eventually Hellboy died, and Hell on Earth basically happened. And this is set right after the Hell on Earth thing. The H.O. Sapien one. This is issue 37 of the series. Yep, 37. Yeah, for some weird reason, Dark Horse published these stories printed in these paperbacks out of order. This is actually more arranged and more of a chronological order and referencing some stuff here. And that's it. Overall, really good book. Yep, and keep it, there's only 2 more books left to go for Abe Sapien, and then I'm done with Abe Sapien. When I finish Abe Sapien, you're probably like, okay, what's next? Well, I'm thinking of doing Witchfinder. Actually, no, Witchfinder's going to replace B.P.R.D. Well, actually, I'll probably replace Abe Sapien with Witchfinder because I kind of set it up there. Yeah, when B.P.R.D. finishes, I'll do Hellboy and B.P.R.D. after that, which I don't think that'll take very long to get through. Nope. And then once that's finished up, I'm going to do, depends which is finished up first, I'll do Lobster Johnson. Yep. But yeah, that's a particular view. Please be sure to like and subscribe, turn notifications. And I'll see you all tomorrow for Black Butler, One Piece, My Hurricane of Vigilantes, and Yashi Hero Dark Elf, She's Another World. Plus my Comic Core, Doctor Who. Okay, next you. Bye.